The temperature in the elegant Roman restaurant seemed to drop 20 degrees as I stared at the empty space where my place setting should have been. The murmur of conversations around our table faded to a hollow echo as 12 pairs of eyes deliberately avoided meeting mine. My husband Nathan's words hung in the air between us. "Oops, guess we miscounted," he said with a light chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. The family laughed, that particular breed of laughter reserved for inside jokes at someone else's expense. My mother-in-law, Victoria's diamond earrings, caught the candlelight as she exchanged a satisfied glance with my husband's sister. I felt my heartbeat in my fingertips, each pulse sending electricity through my body. The betrayal crystallized in that empty space at the table. Not just a missing chair, but the culmination of 5 years of calculated exclusion. I'd spent months planning every detail of this birthday celebration in Rome, from the imported peonies to the vintage champagne, only to discover I wasn't meant to be part of it. "Seems I'm not family," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'll see myself out." I turned and walked away, my midnight blue Valentino dress whispering against the marble floor. No tears, no scene, just the quiet dignity they never expected from the event planner who had married above her station. My name is Rachel. I'm 34 and the founder of Elite Events. This is the story of how I dismantled an empire with a single phone call. The distance from the restaurant's ornate dining room to the street below felt like crossing between worlds. Each step down the spiral staircase stripped away another layer of pretense I'd wrapped around myself to fit into the Hamilton family. I'd spent 5 years trying to belong in a world that had marked me as temporary from the beginning. I first met Nathan at a charity gala I'd organized for Boston Children's Hospital. He had that particular confidence of old money, not flashy, but absolutely certain of its place in the world. When he pursued me, I mistook his interest for respect. "You're the wizard behind all this," he'd said, gesturing around the transformed ballroom. "My mother has been trying to find someone competent for her foundation events. I think I just found her answer." I should have recognized then that I was being assessed for my usefulness rather than my worth. But Nathan's charm was persuasive, and when he proposed 11 months later, I silenced the warnings in my head. The Hamiltons were Boston aristocracy, their fortune tracing back to shipping and railroads. Victoria Hamilton's first words to me as her future daughter-in-law had set the tone for everything that followed. "Self-made success is so American," she'd said, her smile never reaching her eyes. Throughout our marriage, the undermining was systematic. My opinions sought, then dismissed. My background in event planning treated as a charming hobby rather than a successful business. "Rachel has such a good eye for these things," Victoria would tell her friends, patting my hand. "It's almost like having a personal party planner in the family." Nathan never defended me. "That's just how Mother is," he'd say with a shrug. "Don't take it personally." But it was personal. And it had culminated here in Rome at Victoria's 70th birthday celebration, a week-long event I'd thrown myself into planning, leveraging every industry contact I had, even using my own company's credit line when the Hamilton deposits were mysteriously delayed. Now, standing outside the restaurant, I checked my watch. The Hamiltons would need exactly 30 minutes to realize what I was about to do, 30 minutes to transition from smug satisfaction to utter panic. I walked to a small cafe across the street, ordered an espresso, and pulled out my phone. As the event planner who had made all the arrangements, whose company credit line secured the deposits, I had the authority to make changes. The digital trail of emails, contracts, and payment authorizations all bore my name and signature. Not Victoria's, not Nathan's. I'd insisted on this arrangement after several past Hamilton events had payment complications that left vendors calling me directly. My business reputation was on the line, so I'd made sure I maintained control of all arrangements and finances for this trip. With methodical precision, I began canceling everything. First, the remainder of tonight's dinner, the 7-course tasting menu and 3-tiered birthday cake, then tomorrow's vineyard lunch, the private Vatican tour, the yacht for the Amalfi Coast excursion, the villa in Tuscany for the final weekend. One by one, I transferred the deposits back to my business account. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Where are you?" Stop being childish and come back. I ignored it and continued my work, a strange calm settling over me. This wasn't impulsive rage, it was calculated reclamation. Another text arrived. Mother is upset. You're embarrassing yourself. I smiled at the screen. Nathan still thought this was about hurt feelings or a tantrum. He had no idea what I'd discovered while planning this trip. 3 weeks earlier, Nathan had left his laptop open in our hotel suite while he took a shower. A message preview from V caught my eye. Can't wait to see you in Rome. Have you told her yet? I'd never checked his phone or emails before. I'd always respected his privacy, but something made me look that morning. Perhaps it was the gradual accumulation of red flags, his late nights, the sudden password changes on his accounts, the way he angled his phone away from me when texting. The message thread with Vanessa Hughes, his college girlfriend, the woman his parents had always adored, went back months. Plans made, a future discussed, and a baby, their baby, due in 4 months. I took screenshots and forwarded them to myself, then continued my investigation. Having handled the family's event-related finances for years, I had access to various accounts and documents for planning purposes. Victoria had insisted I handle all the tedious details of their social lives, inadvertently giving me a window into their financial world. I found draft separation papers prepared by the Hamilton family attorney dated 2 months earlier, a proposed settlement offering a pittance compared to what I was entitled to, and most damning, an actual script outlining how Nathan would announce our impending divorce at his mother's birthday dinner, presenting it as a mutual decision reached amicably. The missing chair wasn't an oversight or last-minute adjustment. It was the centerpiece of their plan, a public humiliation designed to make my exit look like my choice rather than their orchestration. I'd discovered the adjusted seating chart in an email from Victoria to the restaurant manager 2 days ago, requesting the discreet removal of one place setting just before our arrival. As I sipped my espresso, I sent a prepared email to Marco, the restaurant manager, with instructions we had previously agreed upon as a surprise contingency, a common practice in high-level event planning. Attached was proof of my authority as the account holder and event coordinator, along with confirmation of immediate payment reversal. 28 minutes after I had walked out of the restaurant, I finished my espresso and paid the bill. It was time for the final act. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked back across the street to witness the moment when Victoria Hamilton's perfect birthday celebration crumbled around her. I entered through the service entrance, which I had visited earlier that day during my final walkthrough with the staff to check on the imported peonies and birthday cake. Marco had given me a complete tour of the restaurant, including the kitchen and service areas. I positioned myself in a small alcove near the kitchen with a perfect view of the Hamilton table. They were in the middle of toasting Victoria, champagne flutes raised high, faces glowing with self-satisfaction. The first course had just been served, the imported Osetra caviar that Victoria had specifically requested. I texted Marco. You may proceed. From my hidden vantage point, I watched as Marco approached the table with 2 other staff members. He leaned down to speak quietly to Richard, Nathan's father, who sat at the head of the table. Richard's expression changed from polite interest to confusion, then alarm. He pulled out his wallet, speaking more animatedly to Marco, who shook his head apologetically, showing Richard something on a tablet. By now, the entire table had noticed the disruption. Victoria set down her fork, her regal posture betraying the first hints of tension. Nathan was staring at his phone, presumably reading my latest text explaining exactly what I had done. All deposits have been returned to my company account. All arrangements for the week canceled. Your family's financial issues are about to become very public. Enjoy your caviar. The scene unfolded like a perfectly choreographed ballet of chaos. Richard stood, his face flushed. Victoria's hand flew to her diamond necklace, clutching it as if for support. Nathan's sister was frantically whispering to her husband, and Nathan sat frozen, his face drained of color. My phone rang, Nathan calling now, not texting. I declined the call and watched as he stood abruptly from the table, nearly knocking over his chair as he stepped away to try again. This time I answered. Rachel, he hissed, his voice a mixture of fury and panic. What the hell do you think you're doing? Seems I'm not family, I repeated calmly. So I'm not responsible for family celebrations. You need to fix this right now. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for my mother? For all of us? I have exactly the idea, Nathan. That was the point. Where are you? His voice changed, desperation creeping in. We need to talk. I can explain about Vanessa, about everything. I'm sure you can. The problem is, I've seen the financial statements, Nathan. I've seen the emails. I know the Hamilton empire is crumbling, and I know you've been hiding assets offshore before filing for divorce. His sharp intake of breath confirmed what I already knew. He had underestimated me, just as his family had from the beginning. Those were private... Yes, they were. Just like the text messages from Vanessa about the baby, just like the script for announcing our divorce at your mother's birthday dinner, just like the seating arrangement deliberately excluding me. Silence on the line. In the restaurant, I could see Marco now speaking to the entire table. Several other diners were watching with undisguised interest. The Hamiltons' humiliation was becoming a public spectacle, exactly what they had planned for me. Rachel, please. Nathan's voice had lost all its aristocratic confidence. You don't understand what this will do to us. I understand perfectly. That's why I did it. We can work this out. Come back to the hotel. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. No, Nathan. I don't think we can work this out. I ended the call and stepped out from my hiding place. It was time for my final appearance as a Hamilton. As I approached the table, 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, some angry, some fearful, all disbelieving. Victoria spoke first, her voice shaking with fury. How dare you ruin my birthday? I smiled, feeling a strange sense of calm. I learned from the best, Victoria. After all, isn't this exactly what you planned for me? A public humiliation, an orchestrated exit. The only difference is I changed the ending. Richard stood. This is outrageous. You had no right. I had every right, I interrupted. Every contract, every reservation, every arrangement was in my name or my company's name. I simply adjusted the plans. You'll regret this, Nathan's sister spat. When Nathan divorces you, you'll get nothing. That's where you're wrong, I replied, looking directly at Nathan. I have copies of everything, the offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the fraudulent business dealings. I'm sure the IRS will find it all fascinating reading. Their faces turned ghostly white as the implications sank in. In that moment, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a profound sense of liberation as I turned and walked away from the Hamilton family for the last time. I left Italy the next morning, upgrading myself to first class on a direct flight to Boston, using points I'd accumulated planning the Hamiltons' previous vacations. Behind me, I left a family in crisis, their carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. Through the hotel concierge, I learned that the Hamiltons had paid for their dinner with Victoria's vintage Bulgari bracelet as collateral until a wire transfer could be arranged. By morning, word had spread through Rome's high-end hospitality network that the illustrious American family was having payment difficulties. The remaining vendors I hadn't personally canceled began requesting upfront payments rather than promises. My phone was flooded with messages, some threatening, others pleading. Richard, this is actionable. Our lawyers will be in touch. Nathan's sister, you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Victoria's message was the most revealing. I always knew you were common. This vindictive display only proves what I've said from the beginning. But it was the succession of messages from Nathan that told the real story of a family in free fall. First, you have no idea what you've done. Father had a minor heart episode. Is that what you wanted? Then, the Prescotts and Whitmores saw everything. Do you know what this means for our standing? Later, the hotel is demanding payment for the entire week up front. They say all guarantees have been canceled. And finally, please, Rachel, I need to talk to you. It's about more than us now. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded the financial documents I'd gathered to my lawyer with instructions to hold them securely until needed. If the Hamiltons pursued litigation, I would be prepared. When I arrived home to our Beacon Hill brownstone, I hired a moving company to pack my personal belongings. I took only what was unquestionably mine: clothes, jewelry I'd purchased myself, my collection of first edition books, and the artwork I'd acquired before our marriage. Everything else, including the wedding gifts and items purchased jointly, I left behind. I wanted nothing that could tie me to the Hamiltons' web of deceit. 2 days later, the Boston Globe published a small item in their society section called Investment Group Faces Inquiry. The article mentioned financial irregularities and questions from investors. While it didn't make front-page news, it was enough to send ripples through Boston's social circles. Nathan appeared at my new apartment unannounced 1 week after I returned from Rome. He looked haggard, the polished veneer of privilege replaced by genuine desperation. "You need to come home," he said when I opened the door. "This has gone far enough." "This isn't a negotiation tactic, Nathan. This is divorce." He stepped inside without invitation, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "The SEC is looking into father's accounts. 2 board members have resigned. Mother had to cancel her charity gala because 3 major donors pulled out." "That sounds like a Hamilton family problem," I replied. "Not mine." "It's your problem if I go down with the ship," he countered. "We're still married. My debts are your debts." I allowed myself a small smile. "Not when I have proof that you deliberately excluded me from financial decisions and hid assets with the intent to defraud me in divorce proceedings. My lawyer assures me that's enough to protect me." His facade cracked completely then. Nathan sank onto my couch, head in his hands. "I never wanted it to be like this." "What did you want, Nathan? To marry me for my event planning skills? To use me to manage your social calendar while you reconnected with Vanessa? To discard me when I was no longer useful?" "It wasn't like that in the beginning," he said quietly. "I did love you. But not enough to stand up to your family, not enough to be honest about your affair." I sat across from him, feeling strangely calm. "When is the baby due?" His head snapped up. "How did you—" "4 months, according to the texts I saw. Congratulations." A heavy silence fell between us. Outside, rain began to tap against the windows of my new apartment, smaller than our brownstone, but mine alone, paid for with the proceeds from a business I'd built without Hamilton money or connections. "I'll give you whatever you want," Nathan finally said. "Just hand over those documents and sign an NDA. Name your price." That was the moment I realized the Hamiltons still didn't understand me at all. After 5 years, they still saw me as someone who could be bought, someone motivated by the same material concerns that drove their existence. "I don't want your money, Nathan. I want my freedom. I want the truth acknowledged." I stood up, indicating our conversation was ending. "The documents stay with my lawyer, unless you try to drag me down with you. The divorce terms are simple. I walk away with what's mine, you with what's yours." "And Vanessa? The baby?" His voice was barely audible. "That's between you and your conscience. I hope you'll be a better husband to her than you were to me." After he left, I stood by the window watching the rain intensify. The scandal unfolded gradually over the following weeks. The Boston Globe ran a more extensive piece on the Hamilton Investment Group's financial irregularities. Longtime clients quietly withdrew their portfolios. Victoria's position on 3 prestigious charity boards became emeritus rather than active. Vanessa's pregnancy became public knowledge when she was spotted at her obstetrician's office wearing an engagement ring, the timeline making it clear that their relationship had resumed long before our marriage ended. In Boston's high society, infidelity might be tolerated if discreet, but such blatant misconduct violated the unspoken code. My business thrived despite, or perhaps because of, the scandal. Clients who had once looked down on me now appreciated my discretion and integrity. The story that circulated wasn't about a woman scorned, but about a professional who refused to be used and discarded. 6 months later, I received an invitation that made me laugh out loud when I opened it, a request to bid on planning Victoria Hamilton's next charity event. Apparently, desperation had overcome pride. I declined politely, citing a full schedule. The divorce was finalized without drama. The Hamiltons, focused on salvaging their reputation and finances, agreed to my terms without argument. Nathan and Vanessa married quietly. Their daughter born 2 weeks later. I sent no gift. On the 1-year anniversary of that night in Rome, I found myself planning another event in Italy, a celebrity wedding on the Amalfi Coast. As I stood on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, phone in hand and vendors at my command, I realized something unexpected. I was happy, not despite the collapse of my marriage, but because of it. The Hamiltons had tried to make me feel small, to reduce me to an accessory in their grand narrative. Instead, they had inadvertently freed me to reclaim my story. In losing what I thought I wanted, I'd found what I actually needed. Not acceptance from a family determined to reject me, but the courage to reject a life built on appearances. I raised my glass to the setting sun, toasting the missing chair that had shown me exactly where I belonged.